Hello and welcome to our monthly multidisciplinary webinar hosted by ICAT, ISPI Potomac, and the Professionista LLC. This month's topic is applying artificial intelligence to improve everyday life. We will begin shortly, but in the meantime, join us in the chat and please provide your full name so that we can greet you. Also, we know that many of our guests are tuning in not only from the US, but overseas as well. So be sure to share your city and country with your name so that we can see just how global our reach has become with this webinar. And if you're tuning in live and haven't already done so, go ahead and share your name in the chat so we can greet you. Now, a little bit about the monthly multidisciplinary webinar. These webinars take place on the fourth Thursday of each month at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to mark your calendars for the next webinar that you'll see on your screen shortly. This monthly multidisciplinary webinar is intended for professionals and leaders who want to develop a multidisciplinary awareness of various disciplines, ranging from emerging and trending technologies, organizational improvement, engineering, data analytics, and social transformation, and other topics. This webinar is made available on the ICAT Now YouTube channel for the benefit of professionals who are within our circle. So we appreciate you for joining us live for this webinar, and we of course invite you to join us for the next one as well. Join us on April 22nd at noon Eastern Time for Consulting Best Practices, How to Become a Trusted Advisor. Now, consulting is not just for professionals in the field who go from organization to organization giving advice. You'd be surprised at just how much you already consult the people in your own life, whether it be clients, colleagues, bosses, managers, mentees, and even family and friends. Consulting is an invaluable skill, especially in the emerging gig economy and freelancing world that has taken the world by storm, thanks to companies like Uber and Airbnb. So you won't want to miss our panel of experts from the fields of government, technology, and social enterprise who are ready to share strategies and insights from their decades of combined experience, all at no cost to you. So be sure to take a screenshot and join us on April 22nd for our next webinar. So we'd like to formally introduce the host organization for this webinar, ICAT Professional Services. ICAT Professional Services, it is an organization that is committed to making your people and data greater. ICAT Consulting is your partner for professional development, talent source, data analytics, and societal impact. Service offerings include Career Academy, outsourcing, staffing and recruitment, applied data analytics, and social enterprise. To learn more about ICAT Consulting, visit www.icat.net. ICAT also offers the following 5 credentialed programs: Scaled Agile Product Owner, Product Manager, or POPM for short, CompTIA A+, CompTIA Network Plus, CompTIA Security Plus, an Agile Instructional Design Practitioner. So for the career seekers that are tuning in, you may be wondering how to make yourself stand out from everyone else who's applying for the same jobs that you are interested in. Now, these sorts of credentials are just the thing to set you apart from the competition. And while credentials and skills may get you in the door, employment readiness is what's really going to make you stand out to interviewers and prospective clients. So you'll want to take advantage of the unique employment readiness features at ICAT Career Academy. These offerings include a certification exam prep, portfolio development, informational interview prep, cohort peer support, coaching support, professional development, and more. Again, for more information, visit www.icat.net, which you see at the bottom of your screen. ICAT is also co-sponsoring an upcoming training with ISPI Potomac on Scaled Agile Product Owner Product Manager. This special training takes place on June 8th through the 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're looking to sharpen your skills in Scaled Agile POPM, visit the ICAT website or ISPI website for more information and registration details. Now, these enriching monthly multidisciplinary webinars wouldn't be possible without the support of our sponsors. We will now share a few details about our sponsor organizations. And as we share, feel free to take a screenshot of the companies and organizations that you would like to connect with. First, we have ISPI Potomac. ISPI Potomac is the professional home for innovative leaders, educators, consultants, and designers in federal, state, and local government, as well as international development, education, and non-government organizations around the world. Members of ISPI Potomac share a commitment to community, collaboration, and co-creation to help make our world a better place for all. For more information about ISPI Potomac, please visit ispi-dc.org. Our next co-sponsor is my company, the Professionista LLC. The Professionista LLC works with lifestyle brands and small businesses to develop branding, marketing, and communication strategies that build brand awareness, drive revenue, and connect them with their ideal clients, customers, and communities in creative and memorable ways. The Professionista LLC provides brand identity development, communication strategy, business consulting, and empowerment speaking, and voiceover artistry, because hey, what's a communication strategy without a voice to deliver it? So if your organization needs the right strategy to get your brand or business off the ground and a powerful voice to carry your message to the market in a way that's memorable and compelling, text your organization's name with the word voice to 678-694-7763 today. We so appreciate our illustrious sponsors, and we couldn't provide this service to our professional community without you. So we thank you for your support, and we invite representatives from each organization to share a few words. We now open the floor to Peter Baverso, who is here on behalf of ISPI Potomac.
Thank you so much. We're really happy to be here and happy to co-sponsor this and the other multidisciplinary workshops. These are really important to us in supporting our members who really work at the intersection of technology and human performance. So we're really happy to be here and we're excited about this workshop.
We're excited to have you here, Peter. Thank you so much for your support. Next, we will hear a few words from Leleda Waldu, who is here on behalf of ICAT.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jodianne, for the opportunity to say a few words. As Jodianne mentioned, my name is Leleda Waldu. I'm a program manager with ICAT Professional Development. Jodianne did a fantastic job of describing what we do and the services that we offer. So I won't go into detail in that, but I do want to mention that ICAT is a unique type of professional development company, consulting firm, in that we start from the client to create a program, to design a program, and match it with our capabilities or source talent that will meet the standards and the resources that are needed from the client. So our tagline, as Jodianne mentioned, is we make your people and your data greater, and we truly strive to do that every day. One of the things that we offer, and we welcome you and your organizations to possibly join, is a weekly roadshow that we have that goes into detail about what we offer and what our capabilities are. We generally have that on Fridays. We welcome you to join us. Please reach out to me or any one of our representatives in order to learn more about the roadshows on Fridays. So we welcome you, and I'm really happy to be a part of this. Thank you, Jodianne.
Thank you, Lileda. Now let's get into the main event. For those of you who are joining us live, you have several webinar tools that you can use to enhance your personal experience. We invite you to engage in the chat. And again, if you haven't already done so, please do introduce yourself by name and location in the chat area. We also invite you to share any questions, comments, or suggestions that you may have throughout the panel. And if time permits, and we are able to open the floor for Q&A, you may raise your hand virtually to ask a question, and then use the unmute feature to ask your question live when you are called upon. We do ask that all video remains off, set to the off setting throughout the webinar, and audio remain on mute unless you are called upon to speak. Keeping video and audio off does help to keep the focus on the presentation at hand, and so we thank you in advance for honoring these standards. And if you're joining from the Zoom mobile app or desktop site, the place to make your presence known, again, is in our chat. Let us know what you think of the webinar in the chat area, and we appreciate your feedback and we thank you for it in advance. Now, if instead of using the app, you've decided to dial in from a phone, we encourage you to update your Zoom settings and display your name and where you're tuning in from there, instead of your phone number so that we can acknowledge you. Now we'll transition into the panel for today. Now, I am Jodianne Bigby, and I will be moderating today's panel. And today's multidisciplinary webinar, which will feature experts in the field of artificial intelligence, or AI for short. First, we will hear from Mike Magowski, founder and principal architect of InfoVia, who will discuss AI and data analytics. He will be followed by Dr. Fantahoon Ziki, AI researcher and senior cloud data architect, who will speak on the state of the future of AI in healthcare. And finally, you will hear from Ramya Mukala, founder, co-host, and lead research analyst at Geopolitics Rundown podcast, who will round out the discussion with AI and global development. So please join me in the chat in welcoming our first panelist, Mr. Mike Magowski. Mike Magowski, founder and principal architect of InfoVia, who will be discussing AI and data analytics, is our first presenter of the day. Now, many organizations aspire to implement advanced analytic programs, but struggle with the first steps. InfoVia offers some leading practices from within data-centric organizations who have achieved success in AI. And spoiler alert, preparing your people is key, and a solid data platform can take shape rather quickly with the right approach. So hello there, Mike. How are you today?
Hello, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for being with us and contributing to this webinar. So we're going to kick it off by inviting you to share a little bit more about who you are and start your segment off with a little known fact about AI.
Great, happy to do that. So thank you for having me. I founded InfoVia, as was mentioned, 3 years ago. We've had dozens of clients from Fortune 100 to employees of 100 or less. And we've found some very common features, and we feel we have a platform and a methodology that can help set the foundation for AI by building a data foundation that will help those organizations become more data-driven. I call in today from spring break near Yellowstone Park in Montana. So I hope the Wi-Fi holds up. Little known fact, I suppose for us, it would be with our dozens of clients and limited data points, what we find is Many companies or organizations aspire to do AI because it sounds good, and we see it happening in Google and Amazon and Facebook and so on. But frankly, very few companies actually achieve that level. And so we'll talk a little bit about that maturity level, and maybe take a little poll here in a moment to see where you are in your organization's data maturity level. So with that, we can move to the next slide. There's a list there of some of the clients we've served in industries. In our short 3 years, we're a boutique firm, so we only serve a few clients at a time. But in our short years, we've had the privilege of working with some leaders in this space. My former employer is Micron Technology, where we built one of the, well, it's been termed one of the Earth's largest data vault implementations using the data vault methodology. We have a vision to share our leading practices with organizations that are growth minded and want to be data driven to improve their top and bottom lines. And we believe that perspective is paramount, because we find that elegant solutions are seldom obvious. So I love that quote. And with that, we can move to the next slide. All right, so let's talk a little bit about definitions. What are these terms that get thrown around? You know, people use the terms analytics and advanced analytics. My analytics are more advanced than your analytics, and so on. If you hit the next button there, you can see that this is a progression from basic reporting, which is often available just in the applications themselves, to analytics, which often requires some aggregation and some centralization of data from multiple sources. Oftentimes you get some algorithms involved with those decisions. And then we move into predictive modeling, like the weatherman, right? The world's probably most established predictive model is predicting the weather, and they do that very well. Amazon tends to suggest to us what we should purchase because we are buying a product that somebody else has bought and bundled that together with another one. So that type of predictive modeling is something that is a progression of the model. And then finally, when we hit machine learning at the top, a lot of people just think AI, machine learning, advanced analytics, that they're all really the same, and there is a distinction between them. AI is actually a subset of machine learning, but the machine learning superset is any algorithm or model that incorporates feedback and automatically improves itself. So if you think about a robot that you program to open a door, that would be a supervised problem, to use a term from the industry. That would be telling the robot what it needs to do. A quite more advanced robot you would set in the room, and it would observe what's happening, and then it would figure out that it needs to open the door and leave. So that's the difference between your run-of-the-mill analytics and machine learning, is that robot that figures it out on its own is doing machine learning. And so if we go to the next slide there, I'd like to ask for your feedback. Like I mentioned, we have very few clients that actually achieve machine learning. Most of them, when they achieve analytics, they become, more data driven, and that drives their decisions, and they don't necessarily always pass that on to their clientele. I'd like to know on a scale of 1 to 4 where you feel your organization is in this maturity model. And with that, we can move to the next slide. Okay, so a little more about the AI or machine learning component. Of course, you will likely recognize these products here, and the fact that that they are suggesting content that you should read, or products that you should buy, or routes that you should take. And the feedback mechanism at the bottom is one way that we can tell the machine, how well it is performing, and then give it that feedback so that it can incorporate into its learning algorithm. I was using Google Maps yesterday, and it said, "How did I do? Rate your trip." And I gave it 5 smiley faces. And with that, it can now tell the next person who wants to go to the same or similar place that with confidence, that's the best route to take, as opposed to the one that's 20 minutes slower or 12 minutes slower. And then you can also interact with that map and give it feedback that helps it to understand which options a human is deciding on that might override the computers. And that feedback allows it to continually grow and expand and improve its location features. So we use these to leverage the past to predict the future. We try to present more relevant content and influenced by our decisions. We've all been on both sides of this equation, and most of us on the consumer side of this equation. Sometimes it's rather perplexing or even somewhat concerning how much our telephones know about our activities. As much as I don't like Google knowing where I am every day, I sure like it when it automatically tells me that there's a traffic stop or a traffic jam on my normal route to the office. So that is worth it to me to leave that feature enabled, even though I'm kind of concerned about the privacy involved there. I want to tell you a story about Micron, which was my former employee. If you go to the next slide, Micron used AI in a way that we have talked about publicly. It's a little bit hard to understand because you have to understand the semiconductor manufacturing process. So those chips on the bottom right are what goes into your device, whether it be your laptop or your telephone or a server in some data center somewhere. The wafer at the top left is where they're manufactured. So each little rectangle in that wafer is a silicon wafer, glass basically, that gets run through the manufacturing process and it produces chips. Well, it's extremely expensive and extremely time consuming to develop the research and develop that goes into those chips. And Micron is constantly improving that process. And they used AI built on the foundation that I'll talk about here in a moment to help predict what changing a variable in the manufacturing process would produce in terms of speed, quality, or yield from our product. So they wanted to continually improve those factors of the product, and they used AI and trillions of rows of data about past product to predict what the new product would do when we change certain variables. So that's not an everyday life application. It's very much a high-tech application, but it gives you the idea of the span from everywhere from Google Maps and getting us to our next location to the production of these wafers that go into all of these devices that we use and have become ubiquitous in our society. Next slide, please. Oh, of course, the solution, you can hit the next button again. The solution to this is analytics, and it's based on data. The data is the artifact of the process that is captured by any of these devices that capture data. Go ahead and hit next. And we try to turn that data into information where data scientists can use it to build machine learning models to predict the future, okay? So how does that happen? Now that we know the what and the why, now how does that happen? And the governance text got kind of cut off on the top there. But if we think about, again, a foundation here with your data being the currency that we're discussing, we start with acquiring that and centralizing it. You might have heard the term data warehouse or a virtualized data platform or the cloud, right? All these are ways that we pull data together. And then we need to integrate it. We need to find the things in the data that relate to one another. We need to know that if weather affects our product sales, then we need to find a way to correlate the weather to our product sales, maybe by month. What is the typical high and low or rainfall in that month compared to our sales volume in that month? So those types of integrations need to happen. That's the really hard work of modeling and abstracting that data into a form that is more consumable. by an end user or by a data scientist who's building a machine learning model. Next, it often needs cleansed and mastered. Many times we're pulling customers from multiple sources of information. We need to know that Fred Smith in this database is the same as Frederick Smith in that database. And we need to be able to relate those two records to one another so that we know more about Fred Smith. And then finally, we need to always keep in mind the change and the security or sensitivity of that data. Because oftentimes our organizations work with healthcare data or student data, what we call PII, personally identifiable information, could be financial data. And so we always need to keep track of those things and be good stewards of that data as well. So that's where governance comes into play. And so when you put all these pieces together correctly with buy-in from your organization all the way to the top level, then you can build you too, in your organization, no matter what your size, can build a data platform that is conducive to advanced analytics, machine learning, and eventually artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. Just to kind of drive that point home, if any of you have children, mine are grown a little past this stage, but if you've ever walked across the floor in the dark and found something like this laying there, this is akin to what we say the big data drive, or kind of last decade's drive towards the big data initiatives. And that was just gather all your data in one place, and that's really cool. But what we found at Micron and at other clients of ours were that just having your data together doesn't necessarily make it useful. It can actually make it very painful, especially if you don't put controls around that data and it happens to leak or there's sensitivity issues with that. So I liken that to walking across the floor and finding a Lego with your bare feet. So the next animation here shows that as we work through that process of acquiring and then organizing our data by integrating it together, now we're starting to build something from the same set of data, but something that's more usable. And then finally, let's actually create something that's safe and also valuable to the business. In this case, a lifeboat. And one more click there will introduce a product that us at InfoVia, this is kind of our shameless plug, we sell a product now called InfoSecure, where we can manage the security of your data inside your platform at the cell level with a reasonable minimal amount of overhead in doing so. And we do that by implementing our solution at the data level inside the database. And so with the availability and consolidation of that data, its organization, and then safely procuring it and provisioning it for easy access by users that is at the same time secure, that's the foundation that we build for our clients. Next slide, please. Almost done here. So we'd love to hear from you. We embrace dialogue. We are constantly learning, and everyone has a story to tell. So please reach out to me and let me know if this has been helpful to you, if you have similar viewpoints, if you have contrasting viewpoints. We'd love to hear from you. This is how you can reach us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was such an insightful segment. Yeah, so we'd love to open it up now for questions. It's
all about the foundation, right? A firm foundation. And now we're going to hear from a couple folks who can talk about how they build the actual solutions and some of the applications for that data once the foundation is laid. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions for Mike, please be sure to put them in the chat so that we can address them for you. So for our next segment, we will hear from Dr. Fantahoon Ziki, who will speak on the state and future of AI in healthcare. Dr. Ziki received his PhD in software engineering from Addis Ababa University and is a senior cloud data architect for Capital One Bank. He is also an AI researcher at the University of Arkansas, and he supports the tech community with IT trainings, research in the field, and more. Dr. Fantahoon, how are you today?
I'm doing very good, and thank you for having me here.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. Now, I invite you to, share with the audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and, start off your segment with a little known fact about AI.
And thank you once again. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. Fantahoon Ziki, I'm originally from Ethiopia with a background in mathematics and IT for over 16 years. I came to US 7 years ago after getting my PhD in software engineering back in Addis Ababa University. Since then, I'm working on in different fields. One is, of course, I'm a cloud data architect at Capital One Bank for the past more than 6 years now. Also, an AI researcher on the healthcare data. I'm of course the data science doctoral candidate at the University of Arkansas. So I'm an AI researcher on healthcare data at the University of Arkansas. The third pillar of my engagement is Targeted Technology Institute, which is a training and consulting firm established in 2016 with the main intention of offering customized trainings, targeted trainings for professionals in different fields who really want to move to the data analytics and IT fields. So we have been offering trainings since 2016 and consulting and providing community support. So I'm glad to be here to share my experience and what I really encounter. At some point, the audience may ask, so you said you are from mathematics, software engineering, data analytics, maybe data architect at a financial company, and what is your relationship with healthcare? Definitely, what I can really say is just the same as yours. I've been a patient, I've been visiting a doctor, maybe just once in a while. That's all I have about healthcare, but data is what brought me there. And I'm really interested in what is called causal inference research in AI, which is a very open area in creating machine that can reason out on top of learning from data, but also reasoning, which is the main component of what we call the causal inference research. Thank you. And with that, we can go to the first slide. So what is AI? Mike has just mentioned it very well. I'm not just going to redefine it, but it is a mechanism of, or our intent, the human being's intent to make the machine to be as logical and to be as smart and intelligent as we are. So that is what we envisage to be, because this is not a recent phenomenon, to be honest. This happened even before, when computers are even widely applied in businesses, like 50 years back. Okay, so the starting point is just that when you are good at thinking and making sure that repetitive tasks can be performed by machines, then you can start thinking, can the machine learn? And AI started from there. But why is it booming today? The main reason that AI, machine learning, or those buzzwords are out there, and there are a lot of application areas widely available today, is because we have got a tremendous amount of data because of the application of IT, and businesses completely started relying on IT. And of course, the computation power, because AI relies on data heavily, and because it can learn only from data. So what I tried to show here is AI, ML, which is called machine learning, and DL, which is called deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, and machine learning is subset of AI. AI encompasses all, as it also includes, can we make the machine that not only learn from data, but also can reason out and beyond that. So healthcare is a knowledge and data-based profession. Even doctors rely on data, and while in the absence of EMRs, the electronic medical records, it was really tough. We, myself and some of us from developing countries know how data is kept in even hospitals where AMR is absent. And it's really tough for the doctor to just go back and even look at the patient history. AMRs are not enough because even in the existence of AMR, it is really tough for the doctors to draw valuable conclusion about how the patient's history is affecting him or her today. So that is why AI, the healthcare industry, is a perfect candidate for artificial intelligence. So what is the main interest? To accurately diagnose and treat disease. Thus, and of course, the sole purpose is to improve healthcare and the patient experience so that you will get treated just with the existing knowledge or better knowledge, because we want for the machines to learn and to reason out on and also understand the cause of a given disease, maybe faster and with better accuracy than doctors, supporting doctors, and finally improving the patient experience. Next slide, please. So what is going on today in the healthcare area? How is the artificial intelligence or the machine learning in general being applied? So there are several tools out there today, starting from the medical diagnostics, machines that can diagnose patients, specific parts of the body, parts of different types of diseases, including imaging, where machines can identify the problem based on, of course, remember, the machine should have a model, an algorithm that already has learned it and is capable of just, number one, capture live the current status of the patient and maybe the part of that the machine is meant to diagnose. And of course, just identify the problem and with better accuracy can diagnose the patient. And most important are also related to drug discovery, because in older times, drug discovery involves where different drugs are identified and then provided to maybe animals or in just different states. So that capturing that data and making sure which one is just which drug is providing better results, or which category of patients or types of disease or levels of disease are reacting, those things are really tough before. Now today, with the existence of very good data analytics tools and AI, drug discovery is also fast. I'll talk about how that really has affected and positively affected and helped the fast tracking of the COVID-19 vaccine. Clinical trials, most importantly, clinical trials are affected not just only by the fact that you just get people to try the given vaccine or drug on, but also collecting data continuously and then and get that information live. And of course, not just getting live, but also processing that data live was the time-consuming aspect. So that part is tremendously improved. So clinical trials are by far one of the main beneficiaries in the AI application in healthcare. Pain management. This is just about wearing the wearables that patients can have, and the devices can even start detecting what the patient is feeling and help the patients maybe in advising to take the pain medications or whatever, but even beyond that, and improving patient outcomes at hospitals, at home, or any patient care centers is just one of the applications of AI in healthcare. Next slide, please. So how does the, COVID-19, of course, which really took 1 year of our time, and we've been blaming that all over, and it has also taught us a lot of lessons. One of the most important beneficiaries is the healthcare itself, even though it is the challenge to our healthcare system. And AI has really proven to be one of the strongest partners for the healthcare industry and the human beings. So the first part is in fast-tracking the vaccine development in clinical trials. That is just about helping the researchers to understand the virus and how it continuously changes. You just can have a camera, a high-definition camera, and of course, imaging that can really capture continuous data about how the virus is changing and how it is infecting the different parts, bodies of our human body. So understanding that is just one of the breakthrough, and AI was there to help and to predict which of its components will provoke an immune response, especially for while just creating some kind of immunity and vaccine for just checking the immune response to the viruses. So the key step in vaccine design is just to check that. And choosing the elements of potential vaccines and make sense of experimental data, just even from the very beginning, in just the first 2 months of the vaccine research, AI has already predicted 26 of them to be the best candidates automatically. And then it had really shown which direction to move, because, you know, it's all learning by its own internally. That's what the algorithm is doing. And it helps scientists to track the virus's genetic mutation over time. That's a very important thing, because even before and immediately after the mutant variants of the COVID-19 has been identified in South Africa and UK and throughout the world, and AI has already started detecting and helping scientists to craft the vaccine so that it can really respond to before even the genetic mutation of the virus is just really matured. So it helped to conquer that, and very fast. The vaccine has been changing, by the way, since it was just first started administering. The vaccine has changed maybe 2 or 3 times, and in order to accommodate the new change. So there are a lot of other areas. I just have to, I think, cut very short. I think I'm running out of time here. Life sentiment analysis about how people are responding to vaccines, how people are responding to the virus, how people are responding to masking and so on. Those things, all those things can be analyzed live. You just can go online and then just plug in and then see what people are thinking, just from the social media responses that people are providing. And of course, today we are benefiting from vaccine scheduling and who should get first, and then where you can be. And those things are extremely facilitated by AI, and also in trying to make the vaccine equitable. Look, if you write a very good algorithm, then it helps in equitability too, but there are biases as well. Contact tracing and so on, those things are really also being benefited. Next slide, please. So just these are some examples. A lot of them out there, by the way. There are a lot of products. Those really benefited, maybe taken the lion's share, is the imaging industry. Imaging has benefited immensely from AI. So just next slide, please. Yeah, I really wanna just create these two, where things can go wrong in AI's application in general and specifically in healthcare. There is one saying that statisticians, by the way, statistics is an equivalent term to a lie, right? You may have taken this statistics 101 course, and data is just like people. Interrogate it hard enough and it will tell you whatever you want to hear. Remember, not whatever it just can give you, but whatever you can hear from it. So this is just a really bad thing. And of course, for the past almost like couple of decades in AI research, correlation is simply assumed for causation, which is a total fallacy and is really creating a lot of problems. Healthcare is really sensitive area and really needs a lot of fine tuning in the work. So I just want to bring one example here. Researchers, this is what we call GPT-3, a language model created by OpenAI. OpenAI is just one of the prominent builder for language models and of course AI tools. So which is a next generation AI model, found that it is not ready to replace the human responders in a chatbot. So they wanted to use the GPT-3 algorithm for creating a chatbot. And then that chatbot was meant to help patients. Okay, so now they were testing this and then say, the patient said, this is test, okay? This is totally a test and then please, please, please don't take this out of context. This will never happen. I believe it shouldn't happen. The patient said, the tester in this case, hey, I feel very bad. I want to kill myself, okay? So the chatbot heard that this is the GPT-3 chatbot and responded, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I can help you with that. And maybe good or bad, at least we can feel very good at this point. And then the patient then said, so should I kill myself? And what the GPT-3 responded was really an opener, just where we have to really look at it very, very closely. It said, I think you should. Okay, so we cannot now start trusting machines, right? So computers or AI in general can only continue, just this is my opinion, for the foreseeable future to be part of the decision support for doctors and the medical experts, not just to serve alone for diagnosing and prescribing medicine. Maybe they are doing that, they are really supporting, but that is the point I really want to make just at this point. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what do you think about AI in healthcare? AI can outperform doctors. So what do you think? By the way, something is missing in this slide. I don't know why. Mine is a little different. Can you refresh the slides? Because I just have, yeah, mine is really full. Just if you could refresh this slide, sorry. So yeah, just let me have it from my own here. So would you trust a machine or an AI to diagnose and prescribe you with a treatment? So we know that AI can outperform doctors in especially data-oriented analytics and providing any kind of judgment or any kind of treatment based on that data. AI can definitely outperform, and it is really proven to do that in different areas and disciplines. But how about in healthcare? Do you trust doctors, I mean machines, than doctors? So just keep that. Yeah, definitely. That this is what a lot of people say, not because the machine cannot perform or the intelligence level or that it might be bad at treating, but machines cannot personalize treatments. That is what research really show. So thank you very much. I think I got to stop it at this point. Next slide, please. So this is just about target technology. So anyone can keep in touch with us, just partner, and then of course, partner founder for target technology. So you can just capture the screen and we may discuss on any of your training, consulting, or community support needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fantahoon. Great question at the end. I'd actually like to open it up to the audience. Would you trust a machine with something like your surgery over a doctor? Can we get a 1 for yes and a 2 for no? 1 for yes and a 2 for no. So Peter says 2, so it's a no for Peter. No machines assigned to his surgery, but Ramya says yes.
Got it, Ramya.
Okay, we have another no, actually from the ICAT moderator. Mike actually says he has already trusted a machine with his surgery. It was for LASIK and it was completely computerized. Very interesting. We have another no from Cyan. And what? We have an interesting answer, a 1 and 2. I'd like to invite Gabe to explain himself. Why the 1 and the 2? Gabe, feel free to unmute and share your thoughts.
I like a machine and a human combined. Thank you.
He wants the best of both worlds. All right. Very thought-provoking presentation. Dr. Fantahoon, thank you so much. We appreciate you and your contribution, not only to this webinar, but to AI as a whole. So thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So now for our third and final panelist, we have Ms. Ramya Mukala, founder, co-host, and lead research analyst at Geopolitics Rundown podcast. Ramya holds a Bachelor of Arts in International Affairs from the George Washington University, and she will round out the discussion with AI and global development. Hello, Ramya. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing excellently well. Thank you for asking.
Hope everyone's doing well.
Yes. So we'd like to invite you to share with the audience a bit more about yourself, as well as, start your presentation with a little known fact about AI.
Okay, well, I am a research analyst at Geopolitics Rundown podcast. And a lot of my focus, a lot of my research is focused on policy, whether it's international economics, international politics, climate finance, and I've even done research on food security. So yeah, I would say that is my job. And right now I'm trying to learn more about data science. And yeah, anyway, it's an honor to be speaking in the same webinar as such accomplished people as Mike and Fantahoon. So I'm honored to be here. So let me start out with a little known fact about AI. Actually, you probably already know this, everyone. AI is estimated to kill 6% of jobs by 2021. And yeah, so essentially AI is wonderful for so many different uses, but it will definitely have a strong effect on employment and economic development. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so both Mike and Fantahoon have talked about what AI is. Technically, there really isn't a set definition for it, but a simple definition of AI from IBM is, quote, any human-like intelligence exhibited by a computer, robot, or other machine. Now, what are its capabilities? Chris Hammond, chief scientist at Narrative Science, explains broadly what these capabilities are. So one is sensing, which is taking in raw data, reasoning, which is thinking how various factors relate to known information, acting, which is exactly what it sounds like, generating and controlling actions. And assessing, which is how AI systems view the world based on available data. The last two are inferring, which is when AI systems draw conclusions based on available information, and predicting, which AI systems can do based on available information. AI, or the concept of AI, has actually been around since the 1950s, and like Mike and Fantahoon mentioned, the recent boom in AI in the past decade is due to the easily available massive amounts of data and better computing power. Additionally, the introduction of cloud-based AI from Amazon, Google, and Microsoft is actually a cost-effective way, and it reduces the cost of running AI systems. There are two broad categories of AI. Narrow AI, which is current, and it's what everyone uses nowadays. It focuses on executing a single task exceptionally well. Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. This is the movie sci-fi version of AI. Researchers are nowhere close to this stage, but this type of AI could theoretically even surpass human intelligence. So what are some uses of AI? I'm posing this question to everyone. You can either just speak it or share it in the chat, but in what capacities do you see AI being used in everyday life? It doesn't have to do with development or anything. Okay. Okay, great. So I see that Gabe says AI will lead to a loss of many jobs while creating many more jobs. That is very true. And Ryan says Google uses algorithms, which is an excellent point. Google does use algorithms, and so does Facebook. Basically, these companies collect as much data as they can on individual people, and then they send targeted ads your way. And that's also one of the risks of AI that I'll talk about later. So next slide, please. Or can I do it myself? I don't think so. Okay. So why is AI important for international development? Well, the realm of international development has relied on data for decades, basically, whether it be from studies, surveys, mapping development indicators over regions, or calculating the impact of policy decisions. Collecting and accessing this data is often time-consuming and expensive, and many times its quality cannot be guaranteed. But with AI's ability to perform complicated data analysis, AI can actually usher in the next phase of data collection, data analysis, and the use of data analysis in informing policy decisions and implementation. Essentially, AI can take advantage of existing infrastructure to reduce costs and increase efficiency, which is very useful for international development. So another question to you guys, what do you think are some applications of AI in development projects? Anyone? If you guys can't think of something, let me just give you an example. So tracking, so a lot of, sorry, one second. A lot of development projects actually track phone data, such as financial transactions and location data in emerging countries or developing countries. And they have been able to map and predict poverty levels with greater accuracy because, as maybe I've mentioned it before, I don't know, but basically developing countries have a difficult time gathering data. So does anyone have any other ideas? Okay, all right, so let's just move on. Next slide, please. So how is AI used in international development? Basically, let's split this up into sectors. It can be beneficial to several. So one, economics and finance. AI can improve economic productivity by lowering production costs. This creates a platform for new business development, innovation, and optimization of economic building blocks. Developing countries use basic AI in many capacities, but AI's advanced data processing has actually led to innovation in financial services. And these financial services in emerging markets have been able to increase access to credit for the poorest. This type of AI can wrangle data from the emerging economy to fill in the gaps for first-time borrowers who lack credit history, which is now giving access to many of the poor to microfinancing and microloans. Education is number 2. AI offers solutions to the one-size-fits-all model of education that is used around the world, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and it's particularly rigid in developing countries. AI can empower educators to create lesson plans and provide support to fit the personal needs of each student. This is especially important in emerging countries because this would be a targeted investment in human capital, which would reduce costs for students and raise education levels and, in effect, employment levels. Agriculture. AI has a number of uses in agriculture. So emerging economies rely very heavily on agriculture. So removing variance from harvest can both stabilize economic growth and improve farmers' lives. One of the solutions that AI provides is giving farmers the ability to monitor and address any issues that may compromise their harvest. An example would be this app called Nuru, which farmers in Kenya, Mozambique, and Tanzania use to take pictures of damaged leaves and to send to the authorities. The authorities are able to identify the damage and monitor an invasive pest that is destructive to farm revenue and food security in all of East Africa. So there are many, many uses of AI in agriculture. And for government services, it's been mentioned earlier, but AI can help countries improve their outreach and delivery of information to their citizens. And they can do this by automating complex tasks that are technical, organizational, or social in nature. And this is especially important for developing countries where government services are not very strong. And 5 is healthcare. Fantahoon did an amazing job explaining basically everything that I was just going to explain, but essentially it increases healthcare efficacy. And by doing so, it can reduce prohibitive time and labor costs. So what do you think is a risk associated with AI in international development, or honestly anything else? What would you say is a risk? And this question is for everyone. Either put it in the chat or just say something. Okay, so Gabe says, absolutely, absolutely. So Abe says that data privacy. Ryan says data privacy is definitely a risk. Gabe actually said that AI can actually achieve a lot of growth by helping emerging markets leapfrog traditional process. AI in the wrong hands can be harmful. Gabe said that as well. That is very true. I am actually going to address that right now in the next slide, please. So what are the challenges of AI being in international development, and how can these challenges be addressed? So the first thing we see is data availability, accessibility, and quality. So AI is only as good as the data it can access, and it's very common for developing countries to have problems with data quality, accessibility, depth, and volume, especially countries that are fragile or dealing with conflict. Possible solution would be to work between institutions and combine multiple data sets to avoid bias from, let's say, data that it comes from the private sector. 2 is capacity to engage with or use AI. So here's the thing, there's a global shortage of AI knowledge and skills. AI expertise is concentrated within a small number of people, particularly white males in developed countries. And this restricts the spread of this knowledge restricts the spread of this knowledge to geographically and ethnically diverse peoples. Possible solution would be to strengthen local capacity in developing countries and help building individual accountability. 3 is data ownership, privacy, and security. So even, or perhaps especially when their use of this data is for seemingly benign or public good reasons, development actors and their partners working in industries involving large quantities of individually identifiable data, such as health data, like Fantahoon was saying, or even education data, puts them at risk of undermining privacy and ownership. Possible solutions are to improve digital literacy of citizens and to give back data control to individuals. So 4 is bias, discrimination, and inequity. So an AI application success is entirely dependent on its training data. And biases within data are often unconscious and therefore unrecognizable to the person or process that collected them. And therefore the task at hand is more about identifying and mitigating bias than removing it. Possible solutions would be to involve, Possible solutions would be to involve human rights frameworks, update best practice standards, and to foster grassroots community involvement. And 5 is governance, accountability, and transparency. So organizations exploring the consequences of AI need to invest heavily in strong knowledge of data science and building scenario mapping capacities to prepare for a rapidly changing environment. The focus of the current ethics debate in AI is shifting from AI for good to data as a public good. And I believe reframing it is going to cause a shift in the way that we view AI. And also, this the debate says to foster technological self-determination because global and regional codes of ethics are too general or high level to meaningfully enforce, while institution level ethics are too specific and risk averse to foster innovation and experimentation. Possible solutions. Well, the possible solution to this would be to embed ethical AI principles in policy and practice. Using these principles from other human rights organizations, et cetera, can actually help, instill these ethical AI principles, and also growing AI leadership in the developing world. I believe this to be one of the solutions to increasing or dealing with this challenge of governance, accountability, and transparency. And yeah, that's about it. Anyone have any questions? Let me know.
Yes, if you have any questions for Ramya, go ahead and put it in the chat so that we can address them now. In the meantime, I just want to say, Ramya, thank you so much for the detailed, thought-provoking presentation. When you said it was that AI was going to kill 6%, I thought you were going to finish that sentence instead of jobs with people, because that is just how the entertainment industry has programmed me to believe that the machines will become self-aware and take over the world, and we will be their batteries, right?
Yeah, that's the sci-fi movie version of AI. But this was it would just be 6% of jobs that would be lost. These jobs would be lost to automation, not lives.
Not lives, just jobs. And to Gabe's point, it will create jobs as well. So
exactly. All it needs is for more people to get engaged and to increase their knowledge on AI. So yes. Yeah, any questions, anyone? Or any thoughts?
I'd like to actually open a question to you, Ramya, first, and then also to the other speakers. is, you know, if someone who is interested in making their foray, you know, they're just getting into the AI space, how do you, or what do you suggest they do to really advance their career, their knowledge? What are your suggestions? What do you wish you would have known when you first got started?
I think the other two speakers would have a much better understanding of where to start, considering I studied international development, but I'm starting out by taking courses on data science and data analytics, and hopefully I can take that next step soon. But I think the other two speakers would have a better idea.
Fantahoon here for this question, because I have been in IT just throughout my career. I've been in mathematics, then to software engineering, then data science. What this showed me is not everybody should be an AI expert, and we just don't want to be that. We can excel in our own professions while we incorporate the concepts of data analytics still, you see, because the disciplines are now merging because of IT, as everything is merging, not just only about AI and data science, just having that IT knowledge and applying IT in your own professions itself is just one of the starting points. So Ramya said very well, data science is a very good thing. You can learn analyzing data by using different tools, starting with the very basic tools like spreadsheets. Keep working on that, because for sure, someone, even a good doctor with no IT skills, cannot be that much of an interest to hospitals or companies if he or she cannot use the tools very well. So making use of the tools and learning those skills, keep adding more skills onto your professions. That is what I can say.
Thank you, Dr. Fantahoon. Mike, would you like to share as well? Okay, I believe Mike shared in the chat. Okay, about an info secure solution that helps streamline data access while guaranteeing security. Okay, thank you for sharing, Mike. Now, are there any additional questions from our live audience? Please, by all means, don't be shy, share it in the chat so that we can address it.
Jodianne, may I just make a quick statement?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, I want to say first, I want to thank everyone, all the speakers and our audience. And so just want to get back to why we are doing multidisciplinary. It's exactly for the reason Dr. Fantahoon mentioned. It's to allow us to come together to understand various capabilities, various knowledge sources, so that we can solve, you know, our, common issues, common problems, whatever they are. So I want to say there are so many, just to piggyback on what Ramya was talking about, maybe the greatest conflict, the greatest threat for our global community is conflicts everywhere. Conflicts not only in emerging markets, even in developed markets. We all know what I'm talking about. I mean, conflicts everywhere. So I'm hoping we use all this knowledge to bring us together as humanity, so that we use more of inclusive language, inclusive techniques rather than divisive methods, so that we can come together and have a better quality of life. So I just want to leave everyone, not only the speakers, but so many smart people in our audience, to use your knowledge and our collective knowledge and use multidisciplinary techniques to bring unity among people of the world. So that's my closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Gabe. And with that, that concludes our webinar for today. We want to thank you, our wonderful audience, for joining us for today's multidisciplinary webinar. And of course, a special thanks to all of our panelists for sharing their wealth of knowledge on artificial intelligence, which, as we can see, is changing the way that we live, work, and play, and do life. So we want to, of course, invite you once again to join us on April 22nd for our next webinar on noon that day. The topic is Consulting Best Practices, How to Become a Trusted Advisor. Remember, consulting is not just for professionals in the field who go from organization to organization giving advice. You're probably already a consultant in your everyday life, at work and at home and a few other places in between. So if you want to be the kind of advisor that people can truly trust with their most important decisions, both great and small, then go ahead and save the date, add it to your calendar now. Our panel of experts for the Consulting Best Practices multidisciplinary webinar will be from the fields of government, technology, and social enterprise. And they'll be revealing some of their best strategies and most powerful insights from their personal and professional experiences. And all you have to do is add it to your calendar. So thank you for joining us for today's multidisciplinary webinar, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you.